when it comes to MOCRA, which is what this whole series is going to be about, there's nobody better in the world to partner with than Pam. Pam is the person that is going to take a deep dive into all the changes that the FDA is coming through with MOCRA, and she is going to make it really simple. So just to quickly summarize, we're going to have on my website alerts and updates and guidelines, and we're also going to do some Q&A on Zoom that are live, and then we're going to record them and drop them in there. So we're going to have a lot of free information that just demystifies what the FDA is doing. It's very confusing right now. It's not complete, and Pam is going to simplify it for everyone and answer all the questions, and we'll have that available to you. Let's talk about the process. So let's say you're a brand and you are registering for MOCRA, and you have to list the facility that you manufacture. So one thing that we were talking about is that there's a timing issue that you can walk us through, that who has to do it first, who has to do it second. And then my second part to that question is, if their contract manufacturer is exempt and they're doing less than $1 million, let's say it's a brand, they're manufacturing overseas, they're doing less than $1 million US that are being imported into the US, but the brand is listing them as the facility, does that now make them have to comply with MOCRA? So that's a two-part question.
Yeah, and this is really a complex, more complex than it appears. Okay, so the first requirement is that the contract manufacturer has to register with the FDA. They have to tell the FDA who they are and what brands they manufacture for and what product categories they manufacture for that brand. And we are guessing that they're going to use, there's 12 categories that have been established for the voluntary registration program. We're not sure if those same 12 categories will apply, but we're guessing they might. But anyway, so that's the first step, is the contract manufacturers have to do a registration. The other half of the step is the brands have to do what we call a listing. They have to list their products with FDA. And that is it's a notification where you tell them who you are, and you tell them what brands you make, what products you make, and who your contract manufacturer is. So the contract manufacturer has to do the registration first, because the FDA is going to assign them a number, and that's the number that the brand must use when they list their product. So it's important that the brands encourage the contract manufacturers to do those registrations on a very timely basis. But you bring up a good question. If a contract manufacturer has less than $1 million in sales, they may not register, but the brand may sell that product at over $1 million in the domestic market. They may purchase it from several different contract manufacturers. I don't know the answer to that one. That has not come up yet. That's a good question that will have to be answered by our friends at FDA before, as this rolls out. Actually,
and that's what I love about this series, is that I think what we want to communicate to everyone is that the FDA has not outlined every aspect of it, and it's going to be complex. So there's going to be little nuances that need to be worked out, and that's okay. And that's what we're here for. We're here to walk you through that, and come into your company, do a gap analysis, and see if you are exempt or not, and then walk you through, as of today, what the FDA requires, and then over time update you on any changes. So it's not something that is easy to stay on top of. It's a full-time job for Pam to stay on top of what the FDA is doing across the board for cosmetics, or the state of California, or there's so many things that are always changing in our industry. So that's why we look to Pam to answer all our questions.
And this is where the IBA and the PCPC are important, because they've asked their members to provide questions for these gray areas, and they can go directly to FDA. They're meeting with FDA on a routine basis as stakeholders to help develop the guidelines and the guidances for the rollout of the MOCRA programs. So that's where the membership in these associations are so important. And you've brought up a question that I'm going to send them to try to make sure, have FDA consider as part of the clarification as they roll these requirements out to the brands and the CMOs. So good point. Mhm.
Okay, sorry about that. I just had Antonio Banderas jump on my lap, and that is the cat, not the real life person. But with Zoom, I think we can just normalize that. On my calls, either I have a cat jumping on my lap or I have my baby on my lap, and that's okay.